Bonjour. So I'd just like to talk you through some information which the AQA exam board share with us about how you can get the highest marks for the quality of language in your 90 word and 150 word tasks, so that you can try and use some of this stuff. So yeah, I'll just talk you through the key section of the document. So we're looking at quality of language, range of language, and the key things for variety of vocabulary that you need to try and do are avoid repeating yourself. So you can do that by, for example, using similar words, synonyms, such as je préfère, I prefer, j'apprécie, I appreciate, rather than just j'aime, I like, all the time. Sure, it's better to use an opinion rather than none, but to get the highest marks, we want to vary the language we are using. By the same token, rather than just using il y a, there is, which is fine when you're describing a photo card and you're just doing the minimum to pick up the 8 marks. But if you're looking at a question, whether it's a 40-word task, 90-word task, 150-word task, then you want to be using more variety of language. So rather than just there is, il y a, you could be using things like on peut trouver, you can find, or on peut voir, you can see, on peut visiter, you can visit. Instead of just saying c'est super, it's great, you could say something like c'est chouette, c'est génial, c'est passionnant. All different ways of expressing that positive opinion to say something is really nice, great, exciting, that kind of idea. Also, don't just use the je, I form of the verb. Try and use other parts of the verbs, such as the il and elle, he and she forms, or the on or nous, the we forms. If you're using the on, remember, it takes the third person, the same as the he and she form. Okay. And just, words, sophisticated vocabulary, words that most people won't be using is the key thing. But the most important is just don't repeat the same phrases. Don't keep saying j'aime parce que c'est amusant. Je n'aime pas parce que c'est ennuyeux. Yes, it's better than no opinion, but if you keep repeating the same thing, then you're not going to get a high score for quality of language. So that's one aspect. Then look at some of the variety of structures that we're encouraged to use by the exam board. So mentions use of infinitive constructions introduced by prepositions. So what we're talking about there, we're talking about phrases like before, avant de, like, before going to bed, avant de me coucher. In order to, for example, in order to go to university, pour aller à l'université. To say phrases like il est, it is, followed by an adjective is a great thing that you can include, such as il est important de, it's important to, il est nécessaire de, it's necessary to, and you follow those with an infinitive. So things like j'ai l'intention de, I intend to, literally I have the intention of, again followed by an infinitive. For example, I intend to travel abroad. J'ai l'intention de voyager à l'étranger. And also after verbs that specifically take the infinitive, such as the opinion phrases je préfère aller, I prefer to go, j'aime étudier, I like to study, and the modal verbs like devoir, to have to. For example, je dois étudier, I must study. Pouvoir, to be able to. For example, je peux sortir avec mes copains, I can go out with my friends. And vouloir, to want. So, for example, je veux avoir des enfants. So I want to have children. So those are examples of nice things to try and include that are considered a good quality of language. Will help you get higher marks on those written tasks. It also mentions the use of object pronouns. So what we're talking about there, we're talking about things like him and her and it in English. So some examples in French would be je le fais, or as in I do it, I it do, as it were. Je l'aime, I, and that's L apostrophe AIME, I like it, or I it like. Je l'aime, they're examples of object pronouns, or je les, je les étudie, I study them, for example, if you're talking about les sciences, which is plural. So, what else? Use of disjunctive pronouns. So, they are sort of pronouns used for emphasis, such as those that often come after preposition, like avec lui, with him, avec elle, with her, pour moi, for me. So those are examples of disjunctive pronouns. So just if you can use pronouns in different ways, chez moi, at my house, that kind of thing. So it mentions use of indefinite pronouns and adjectives. So indefinite pronouns and adjectives, we're talking about things like something, quelque chose, someone, quelqu'un, everything, tout, or everyone, tous. We've got use of connectives, so those sort of linking words, such as non seulement, mais aussi. So not only, but also. D'une part, d'autre part. On the one hand, on the other hand. So ways of just linking two ideas, maybe contrasting ideas, or extra information in a way that is just a bit more complex than just using and, an or, but, or, ou, mais. You know, those are things that yes, you can use. It's better than no connective, but these types of things are much better quality. Phrases like apart from that, malgré, in spite of. Then adverbs and adverbial phrases are great to try and use. Things such as cependant, however, c'est pourquoi, that is why, par conséquent, therefore, consequently. Par exemple, for example, par contre, on the other hand, heureusement, fortunately, malheureusement, unfortunately. Yes, they're long words. You can see how long that is there. But if you just learn that word, be able to spell it, it's a great type of word to use. When I say fortunately, unfortunately, there's often something positive and negative that you're going to want to write about, and you can put those words in front. Okay, use of negatives. Things like nothing, like there is nothing, il n'y a rien, or personne, nobody, jamais, never. And you can use those like as a subject, personne, jamais, jamais j'irai là-bas, I would never jamais j'irai là-bas, I would never go there. Or you can use it with ne in front. Je n'irai jamais là-bas. So if you're using it after the verb, then you want ne in front, just as a reminder. Other negatives, you've got ni, neither, non plus, no longer. So not just the ne pas, although it's good to use that, but if you can use other types, that would be great. Use of depuis, talk about how long you've been doing something. For example, je le joue depuis 3 ans. So I have been playing it for 3 years, but remember, in the French, you use the present tense form of the verb to go with depuis, even though it's a past idea. And phrases like je viens de, I have just done something. For example, je viens de fêter Pâques. I've just celebrated Easter. Comparisons is another thing that's great to try and include. So, phrases like uh, plus, more, moins, less, aussi que, as much as, and demonstrative adjectives. So these are all grammatical terms we're using here, but hopefully the examples demonstrate what we're talking about. So demonstrative adjectives and pronouns, we're talking about things like ce, this, or that, cet, the feminine version of ce, which is masculine, ces, again, these or those in the, so it's the plural term, ce qui, which, or ce que, another way of saying which. So use of possessive pronouns, so things like c'est à moi, it is mine. C'est le mien, another way of saying it is mine. Use of le plus the superlative adjective, for example, le mieux, the best, le plus important, the most important. And any complex sentences and a wide range of tenses, verb tenses, is going to help you get the highest marks. When it comes to understanding what we're talking about with complex sentences, we're talking about things such as using subordinate clauses to introduced by words like quand, when, où, where, parce que, because, alors que, so, puisque, since, étant donné que, étant donné que, having given that, étant donné que, given that. Use of relative clauses introduced by qui, que, and dont, such as, so qui, who, que, what, dont, whose. So using those types of phrases is going to help you get better quality language marks. Using the present subjunctive. So, for example, after verbs of wishing, an example of that, I want my brother to. I want my brother to have a good job. So, je veux que mon frère ait, spelt A-I-E, un bon métier. So it's just an example of how you of subjunctive. That is probably that's better when you look at that separately, the subjunctive, because it's a bit too complex to go into in this short video. But if you're able to use some subjunctives, then that's great. And also, yeah, just using conjunctions. It's all about making longer sentences. Donc, therefore, ensuite, next, ou, or, puis, then, mais, but, alors, so. So they're just great things to try and include. And finally, using probably the biggest thing of all when it comes to the language mark is making sure you get in past, present, and future. And you've heard that a million times, different time frames and tenses. So, for example, you could use reference to the past. Or, yes, so certainly you can use reference to the present. For example, je vais régulièrement au cinéma une fois par mois. So I regularly go to cinema once a month. Now, you can express the future in a normal way, or I'll call normal, for example, using something like next week I'm going to go to the swimming pool. So la semaine prochaine, je vais aller à la piscine. But you could also express the future by using the present tense as long as you're using a future time frame. So, for example, I'm going to the swimming pool next Saturday. Je